What does early Christian philosophy imply about our significance in eternity? Early Christian philosophy was oriented around understanding the idea of the actual existence of a causative force, or God. Early Christian philosophy was very much concerned with faith and reason. However, faith and reason were not given equal status. Faith was the primary basis upon which religion was founded. Reason, on the other hand, was divided into two camps. Reason, which reinforced or unconditionally confirmed what religion professed, was embraced with open arms. Reason of this nature was used to demonstrate the rational nature of religion. Reason, which appeared to undermine or contradict religion, was rejected emphatically and absolutely. This type of reason was used to demonstrate the need for unquestioning faith. Religion had not learned to embrace one of the traits it so dearly admired, the trait of humility. Religion was unable to say, "We don't know." Any appearance of uncertainty, whether it be from the institution, the leaders, or the members, was considered to be a sign of a lack of faith, punishable by fire and brimstone. As a result of the process of conditional acceptance, religion and reason split. Theology and philosophy, for the most part, with the exception, of course, of philosophical theologies, causing each to disregard the other. Divided, religion and philosophy began their own independent investigation of existence, significance, purpose, immortality, and eternity. The fact that philosophy would not lose interest in the very questions religion had persistently placed its energies and efforts said much about the concept of eternity. If philosophy had re-emerged into its own and taken a different direction than religion, one may have concluded that the concept of eternity may not have been as significant to us as individuals and as a species as we had thought. But philosophy did not re-emerge and begin establishing a concept completely separate from the concept of eternity. Philosophy was very much interested in eternity and the role we may play regarding eternity. Modern philosophers that disregard religion are perhaps very short-sighted when it comes to this regarding eternity. Religion cannot be brushed aside and ignored when regarding concepts towards eternity within philosophical thought. Not only did philosophy emerge as an independent process of examining eternity through the fields of cosmology and metaphysics, but science shortly afterwards emerged independent of religion and began an obsessive search for the outer and inner limits of our universe, our quote-unquote reality. Science began to examine what lay beyond the universe, what lay beyond the concept of time. Science began looking for eternity. What does the concept of early Christian philosophy imply about our relationship to the causative force, or what religions have called God? Early Christian philosophy was concerned with the interaction of the causative force to reality, our universe. With the split of reason and faith, however, faith was no longer held accountable to reason and was able to subscribe to unreasonable arguments in the name of faith. In a sense, this was a form of religious poetic licensing granted by religion. And perhaps one reason why people find faith unreasonable. Other areas of perception are unwilling to acknowledge this process of granting religious poetic license. Thus, observation, science, and reason, philosophy, ignored religions and moved on by themselves. The end results for all three were surprisingly similar, although attained by entirely different means. Religion, using religious poetic license granted to itself, decided to declare the causative force to exist, to be omnipresent or all-present, and humans to have an essence connected to this timeless concept of eternity. Religious poetic license allowed religion to ignore reason and observation, and in many ways oppose and declare this causative force to be omnipresent, but then turned around and stated that reality was not within the causative force, her, him, it. Thus, religion was able to separate quote-unquote evil from its picture of a quote-unquote perfectly good being. Purpose for life emerged. Life existed for the purpose of singing praises and bolstering the ego of the causative force. An omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent being, almighty. One of many of more paradoxes arose from this particular situation. That of an all-present, all-knowing, all-powerful being needing the reassurance that it was just that. Does God really have an ego, or is it humanity with the ego? Philosophy, reason, began its search for eternity, the causative force, and an understanding of our relationship to the abstract force, or what religion has called God. Within 1,000 years, philosophy began evolving toward the concept of an omnipresent causative force, panentheism. Within the constraints of philosophical theology, and with it came a purpose, aiding the causative force to increase, to grow or expand. Perhaps its influences, its interrelationships. Science, observation, began its search for eternity, which lay beyond the universe. The abstract force, which initiated our universe, our reality. Within a short 500 years, science began evolving towards the concept of entropy. All physical realities must, at some point, come to an end. An alpha and omega, if you will. This implied there must be a beginning. We were created. Action and reaction, cause and effect. Beginning and end. A causative force and her creation interacting, although sometimes in very limited ways. Science was also coming to the same conclusion. In conclusion, how do the concepts of early Christian philosophy reinforce the concept of symbiotic panentheism They do not. What is actually taking place is symbiotic panentheism is reinforcing the concepts of the significance of early Christian philosophy. Symbiotic panentheism simply states the causative force is omnipresent, and whatever exists within the causative force must have some form of impact upon her as well, as she affecting what is inside her, a symbiotic relationship. In many ways, classical theism doesn't acknowledge this, but perhaps in mundane expressions of a personal relationship, probably in word only. Given the behavior they exhibit and the frailties of the human species, early Christian philosophy had a problem with the idea of humans being a piece or an emanation of the causative force. So classical theism is based on a theology of separateness, separation. Symbiotic panentheism does not imply the causative force has to be all present in terms of its location within the universe, nor does it imply a human being has all the knowledge, power, and presence of the causative force. Quite the contrary, this model of a universal philosophy, a unified view of science, philosophy, and theology, and or spirituality and religions, goes as far to say these very pieces or emanations of the causative force are almost totally amnesiac of their origin and past experiences within this ultimate entity. Studies on past life experiences emphasize the fact that we, in our present life, forget the past life. Also keep in mind that the model being examined within this is not professed to be the model or the most and only comprehensive model. The point of this is to develop a process for the creation of a model that is the most accurate model we are capable of creating at this particular point in time, using faiths, observations, and logic we have been able to gather as a species. Early Christian philosophy is definitely a part of this. We can no more ignore the perceptions of early Christian philosophy than we can the faiths of 1 billion Muslims, 1 billion Hindus, 300 million Buddhists, 300 million atheists, tens of millions of Jews, or 800 million people who have no particular religious orientation whatsoever. All views must be respected. Unfortunately, religions have the capacity to dehumanize and to demonize persons. All views must be respected, and the only way to do that is to build a foundation capable of rationalizing the right of all individuals to exist within a physical reality whose intention is understood in broad principle by all. The intention of a unified view would be the creation of a universal philosophy. Although perhaps individuals with their personal worldviews and philosophies would probably more than likely not agree on many points, nevertheless, a unified view would indeed help towards a universal cohesion. The operative phrases here are unified view and universal. One of the fundamental principles such a model would need to embrace in order to be unifying and universal is unconditional love, a basic principle of early Christian philosophy. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you obey my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. John 15:9-13. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put away childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. St. Paul, 1 Corinthians 13:4-13.